All right. So welcome everyone. I believe I know everybody that's out there, but just in case I don't know you or you don't know me, my name is Jamie Schwaba, and Tammy Schmidt is also going to be helping join today. I'm the Managing Director at Minnesota Conservatory for the Arts, and Tammy Schmidt is our Director of Dance. And we're happy that you could join us. We're going to just kind of, how today is going to run is we're just going to go through, I have a little slideshow presentation that just kind of goes through some of the what to expect, some of kind of an update on some of the things, the precautions that MCA is taking as far as COVID is related, and just some of the expectations that we're expecting from students and families, as well as things that you can expect from us. Just in ways that we can hopefully navigate and stay in person for as long as possible. It's going to kind of take everybody in order to do that safely. And so with that being said, I will go ahead, I'll start kind of the slideshow and kind of talk through those things. And then we'll have some time for some questions and answers. So I will go ahead and share my screen with you.
Okay.
All right, let me make that big. All right, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see that? All right, awesome. So, so once again, so just I'm looking at kind of what will classes look like this fall. Obviously very different than they ever have in the past. But we're pretty proud with the time that we've put in and the research that we've done. We're basically taking all of what St. Mary's and the state of Minnesota and things like that, as well as CDC recommendations, but then we are also looking at industry standards and things like that. The first thing that we're bringing back is dance, just because it is one of the hardest things to do at home and things like that, as well as we have a lot of St. Mary's students that are taking our classes for credit, and they have dorm rooms. So that's one of the other main reasons why we selected the classes that we did. We also know that at any point, you know, if need be, that we could pull these classes and put them back online if need be. But our intention is to do them in person. I have this little video that I'm going to share that just kind of a little video kind of steps through of kind of what to expect, kind of what some of the expectations are and what you can expect when you come in. Oh, nope. I wanted it to play. Let's see if it's going to play for me. Okay. All right. So, so just basically, I won't read everything verbatim, and there's a couple of things, or there's more to all of these that's listed. Down at the bottom, I have the link that you're welcome to write down. Otherwise, if you go to our website, you know, you can find it as well. It's if you go to the it's in multiple places. If you go to like the COVID-19, you click on that, you'll see a link to the MCA COVID Code of Conduct. But here's some of the ones that I thought were most important to kind of go over. So just knowing that all faculty staff and students will be following the MCA Code of Conduct. There's a waiver that is inside our Jackrabbit registration that did get uploaded the same day as registration opened. So if for some reason you will be getting a reminder to make sure that you go back into your Jackrabbit account, and it will make you check it off, just saying that you have agreed to those as well, that there's been an update into that. So know that you're gonna need to make sure that you've signed off on that. And it's important that if you're a student that's under 18, that your parents are aware of it, that they're the ones that are checking that off, or they're right there with you or whatever. So masks are required at all times. We know that that's not going to be easy. I'll let Tammy can talk a little bit about it further later, but we've really taken that into consideration when planning classes and things like that. We know there's going to be a need to up endurance and things like that. So knowing that our instructors have that in mind, and we'll be keeping an eye on that. They also have some tips on things like that that they'll share with students to make sure that they're paying attention to their bodies, to know, that they're paying attention if they're feeling overheated or different things like that. But they are required. If for some reason you have a doctor's note or things like that, unfortunately, we're going to ask you to go online. But we have that online option. All of those advanced classes that are being offered in the studio will have an online option. So, and they're being recorded and things like that. So with that, I know this is skipping ahead a little bit, but if for some reason you would come and you would get your temperature would be taken, and you would be, and you do have a temperature that's 100.4 or higher, you would be asked to leave. We would give you access to the online class and or a recording if you don't have time to get home in time for that class. So know that it doesn't mean that you have to miss class. If you're feeling okay and you're wanting to participate, you can do that online. We just, between the mask mandates, St. Mary's rules, and our MCA guidelines, masks are required at all times. The only exception would be if for staff or faculty who are inside a space alone. Other than that, social distancing at all time. Most of you guys have heard these things elsewhere, but at least 6 feet when you're in the lobby and things like that. Our dance spaces are going to work a little bit differently. They're a little bit wider. Tammy, do you want to tell us what the dimensions are in each space that they'll have?
Yeah, absolutely. In both Studio One and in the black box, we have boxes that are 8 foot by 8 foot with walkways all the way around that are about 3 feet. So you're actually getting more, you're getting about 10 to 11 feet as a buffer from side to side and from front to back in those two spaces. In Studio 2, it's just slightly smaller. They are, the boxes are 8 foot by 6.5 feet, I believe. That studio is mostly being used for tap, which is done completely in place. And it still also has the 2 to 3 foot barriers on each side, or walkways on each side. So you're actually getting more than what is required, even with the smaller space there. At the bars as well, you will have from where you're standing in space, I think the closest person in any of the studios is between 7 and 8 feet between you. And then you also have 6 feet out away from the bar that is your personal space. So no one would be walking through that as well. So you really have a buffer on every side of you, as well as having your own personal square. And just because it's a lot of information to take in, Jess and I spent a lot of time marking everything out in the last couple of weeks, and we intend for the first couple of classes to take each group of students to the space before they are allowed in, and explaining to them where we expect them to walk, how we expect them to get to the places that they need to be in the space, so that they're not walking through anyone else's space either. So we can be respectful of each other's personal space in all of the studios. We will also have a assigned number. So if you're in square one and center, you'll also be at number one at the bar, and you'll also be at number one for these areas that we have marked off for you to keep your stuff that you don't want with you right at the bar or right in center, like you bring a backpack in or something like that. You'll have the same number at all of those places. And we will shift those around. We'll probably keep you at that number for a couple of weeks, but we will move people around, so you won't always be in the same place in the room. But that way too, you know, God forbid we end up having someone with COVID, we can do extra cleaning in that whatever location we know that that student was. But I should say that also knowing that we are cleaning every day as well, but we would do extra cleaning if we knew that there had been a student in that space with COVID.
Awesome. Thank you, Tammy. Okay, so with that, and I should see, I can't see it because I'm sharing screen. And if you have questions as this goes along, please make sure that you're putting them in there, and then we'll make sure that we answer your question. So just arriving and departing quickly before and after, that goes with, as you saw in the video, we're asking that everybody come with their dance clothing on underneath their street clothes. It is recommended that nobody is changing in spaces, because that means that you're in a space longer. And so we're trying to prevent that. So restrooms will be open, but they're not open for changing. And so that's one of the reasons why we're asking you just to come, allow enough time to have a few minutes at the beginning, because as on the next thing says, you will have your temperature checked, and you'll have to state that you have read that you are not displaying any symptoms and things like that. Then only students and then MCA staff and faculty are allowed in the building. So parents will not be welcomed in the building at this time, unfortunately. We're trying to really limit the number of people that are in the building. We will try to figure out some kind of, way that you can observe classes or things like that. Maybe that will be a Zoom or something like that, but we haven't quite figured that out, but we hope to have that. And, as long as we're able to continue meeting in person, Tammy has also some plans that maybe we would do some recordings of some point variations or some ballet combinations, things like that, that would be able to be shared as kind of a performance that, since we're missing those opportunities this year. I know it has been formally announced in an email to you guys, but just to reiterate, Nutcracker at this point has been postponed to fall of 2021. So next fall instead. So it will still happen, but it has just been moved.
Amy?
And yeah.
Abby asked a question. What
can we'll do all, can we do questions right at the end?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll go through, I'll finish everything, and then if it's not covered, we'll go back and get that. Thank you, Megan.
Perfect.
Then we already talked about the dance attire needing to be worn. We will have the water bottle fillers will be open, but we will not be allowing people to use the regular drinking fountain. So please bring a water bottle with you. We are planning just for mitigating more people in the building, as well as trying to limit the number of hours that staff are in the building and things like that. We are planning to lock the door about 15 minutes after the last class. We will post on the door campus safety's number in case you need something. That's a St. Mary's safety number, as well as if you really needed your student and you were by MCA, you could also knock on the, we have every space that we're in has a window to the outside as well. So, we're just trying to, that way, we don't have to have somebody that's monitoring people coming in the building and things like that as well. So that is some of the thought behind that. And that may change as if later we start to open up the building for some private music lessons or different things like that, those hours could change. But right now that is the plan. Um, dancers will be asked to disinfect just their area after class. We've got it figured out that the instructors will we have big tubs of wipes, and the instructors will do kind of a social distance, drop it in their space so that so that not everybody is touching the same the wipes box, the wipes container. Did I cover that, Tammy, about how we're going to do that? Each one's going to get one in their box. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
We've thought out everything, things that we never thought that we'd be discussing, right? um, and and then also, as it says in the COVID waiver that everybody signs, if you do become infected, or if somebody in your family is infected and you are being required to quarantine, we do require that you do notify us. That is part of what you're signing, so that then we're going to be keeping track of who is in and out of the building at the same time, and all of those things. So that can help us with the tracking. And then I will also be reporting that up to campus and to and if we need to make sure that and talking with the Department of Health as needed as well, to make sure that we're handling everything correctly upon that notification. So that's kind of a little overview of the COVID Code of Conduct. There are more details about some of those things, as well as a couple more items that are not quite as specific that I encourage you all to make sure that you're very aware of. Just kind of an overview of what we have been doing in the space. As Tammy mentioned, you can see, especially in the photos of Studio One, you can see that there's a number up in the corner. You can see there's all kinds of different colors that are used so that we know where the walkways are for the instructors, so we know where the boxes are for the students. We know where there's a spot on the bar for you, as everything was indicated. Some of these were taken at different points where things were not 100% done. Now that is all 100% done, but you'll be acclimated to the space starting next week. I also have a picture of some of the signage that is placed throughout the building. Just reminders of the reminders of people to stay 6 feet apart. The only exception would be if it's somebody that lives in your household. I know it's hard and we all want to hug each other, but we're just going to ask, the only way that we're going to be able to continue to operate in person is if everybody is really adhering to the strict guidelines. It's really, really important. So I thank you in advance for your help with that. We'll have hand sanitizer available in each space, as well as in lobby and things like that. We will also have signage that just reminds people to wash their hands, sneeze into your elbow, all of those things. We have the HVAC system is running at a higher capacity, which helps push the airflow throughout the building, as well as the air filters. I'm making sure that those are being changed and up to date. That's all stuff that St. Mary's maintenance is helping us with. That's when we're really happy that we're part of a bigger institution that helps us with those things. Also, kind of along those same lines, we're making sure that right now, the way we have each class each night, we have no more than 3. Many nights only have 2 classes. And so each class is in a different space. So we may have an instructor that has 2 classes that they're teaching. But they're going to move spaces, so that then we're making sure that we're not staying in one space for too long, as well as you're staying, as well as we don't have lots of extra people walking in and out of spaces. So you'll have a nice clean space. So you're not coming in, and that eliminates that. If you're not in the first class, but you come to the second class, that eliminates you being in somebody else's box before it has had a chance to be sanitized. St. Mary's St. Mary's maintenance will come in and do a deep clean of those spaces each morning. So we will be doing, like we said, we'll be asking each student to kind of wipe down their area in between classes, or like after a class is done. But we will also and we'll also have our staff, in fact, will also be wiping off, you know, a few like doorknobs and different things. Our front office staff will be every once in a while going throughout the building on a regular basis to get doorknobs and high touch surface areas throughout the evening. But that is also one of the reasons why we're very limited with how many people we're having come into the building at this time, until we can kind of get used to all those things and make sure that we can handle bringing on any more music lessons or anything else that we might want to do. But we have to make sure that we can get adjusted to all these new standards. So I know we've talked mostly about the in-person classes, and I know from who's live with us tonight, most of you are planning to come join us live, but just wanted to remind you that, you know, if live is not the right answer for you and your family at this point, we are having the online classes. The only classes that are that will not be online are the ones that are at the levy. Those are our beginning tap class and our tap 2 class, as well as adult tap. Those are the only 3 classes that for this session will not be have an online option. Those will be in person outdoors at the levy, and we just didn't think that trying to live stream those was not going to work. To be honest, we are still working through some of the if we have to switch to a online model, or if we have students that are having to go online for TAP. We know that there's going to be some things that we'll have to work out in order to do those. It may be better to have a recorded version versus an in-person, but we will broach that when it comes. We're going to have to ask people to be a little bit flexible with us as we all navigate this new territory, but we want to make sure that we're offering the best experience to you. We had a really successful TAP camp this year, or this summer, which was, we had all the recordings that students worked through, and then we had a time where they could talk with the instructor at the end, you know, where they talked about some TAP history, but also answered questions that they had, and that seemed to be a really successful model. So there may need to be a little bit of flexibility, especially with TAP. So just a heads up on that. We are right now still offering private music and dance lessons online, and with the possibility of in-person in the near future. At the earliest that would happen is September 21st. We also, it has not opened up yet, but I know there has been some tappers that are wanting to kind of get back into things, and we do have, or if in-person is not the right thing for you, we do have those recordings. So it's a reduced rate because you wouldn't have the in-person thing and you wouldn't have the Zoom calls in there, but we do have some wonderful TAP curriculum for TAP 2 and then a TAP 3 through 5 that was created, which we will have available in the near future. And those are nice because they're self-paced, so they can be, you know, met on your own. Other than that, we still have some MCA moments and videos on both Facebook and YouTube that are accessible and open anytime. We also have some self-paced art kits that also come with access to some recordings of past art classes. So with some great experiences that way to enhance your art skills, especially for those that might be homeschooling this year, if you need something that's kind of more on demand. And then we also are hoping to continue to have some of our music division concerts online. We're working on some kind of a musical theater production that will be announced in a few weeks. And then, like I said, we have some plans for the possibility of a ballet performance. So that is kind of a big overview of kind of what is happening at MCA right now, kind of what some of the expectations are, both for you guys to expect from us and for us to expect from you guys as a community. And so that leaves it to...
Actually, Jamie, before we get questions, I actually have quite a few other things that I think will answer some other questions that may come up.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
I just want to, and these are things for dancers that are coming back. I know it's a lot of information, believe me, as we've been researching all this information. It's been a lot for us too. So I'm going to be posting some of this in each of the studio spaces and then also in the dressing room as well. Just, you know, kind of like one of those things that, you know, to remind you to bring certain things if you're going somewhere. This will be kind of your list before you come into the studio, just reminders. There will be no bare feet at all in the studio. What I'm going to highly suggest for dancers is to wear some sort of a slip-on shoe when you come to class, or even you know, those slippers like sometimes we wear in the theater when it gets a little bit chillier outside, something like that. So you're never walking around barefoot between classes, just so as you easy on and off. And if you can even, if you're wearing point shoes or tap shoes or something that you could just slip your foot right into with the shoe on. I would suggest that because we're not going to have any bare feet in the studios. And that will also help us the first couple of weeks, especially as we're building up more cardio endurance. I want to make it very clear that if any time you feel like you need a break from the studio space, I know I'm personally claustrophobic, so even just being in a mask for a short amount of time at first, I felt very panicky, especially when you start exerting yourself. So I'm going to kind of watch for signs within class, but if at any time you feel like you just need a break, there's a door close by, and we'll let you know what that is for each studio when you get here. And there's a little wooden prop that you can prop the door if you need to just walk out and take a moment, take your mask off and just breathe. We anticipate that'll happen. I'm going to kind of start with about 15 minutes at first, just kind of asking if we want to take a moment, and then we can, if you want to just exit the building to take your mask off for a moment, socially distance from each other, you can. You'll have your flip-flops or whatever right in there, so you can just take a walk right outside, or just to have a moment in your space where you're just able to breathe. We anticipate over time that'll get less and less often that we'll need to do that, but we want to be really aware of that everyone's coming at this from a different place. I know personally from not dancing and just teaching you a combination over the summer and then sitting down in front of a screen and not even getting to walk the studio, I know personally I've lost a lot of that. And so I can assure you that we're all going to be in that same place when we start doing jumping again and things like that too. We'll be mindful of that. I've talked to all of the instructors. We've said once we get to center work, we'll probably do a combination and then breathe for a moment before we go on to the next. So just know that we're going to build that in. We know everybody is coming back and we're having to build up again. So just make you aware of that. So shoes, that's a really important thing. Something easy, slip on, slip off. We won't be traveling through space across the floor like we would do, just because right now they're saying the guidelines for our industry say that that's not a really good choice. So with those 8x8 squares, and you'll see, or 8x8 or 10x10 or 6x8, whatever you're in, you'll be surprised how much space it actually is that we're able to use. So there's a lot of creative ways that we can play with that, whether it's taking PK turns in a circle in our square, or traveling back and forth in a petit allegro in that space. There's a lot we can do with that limited space. Not everything will work that way, will work well like that. Grand allegro will be maybe a little bit trickier, but we're anticipating, I've asked the other instructors not to do any grand allegro for at least the first 4 weeks. It takes your body a minimum of 4 weeks to change a muscle, and we want to be really sensitive to the fact that the intrinsic muscles of the feet are going to be probably a little bit weak, as will, your calves, hamstrings, quads, everything may be a little bit a little bit fatigued quicker. So we'll just be aware that it may look a little bit different, but we'll get there within our space for now. So that hopefully we can build to longer combinations and things like that. The other thing related to the mask wearing that Jamie was saying, I would highly encourage you, if you haven't done a lot of activity that would allow you to exert yourself, I would suggest maybe trying out a couple masks. Just wear them and take a brisk walk on your block, or do some jumping jacks or something like that, just to see how you feel doing that heavy work in the mask. Even just walking quickly, you'll notice pretty quickly, is it sticking to my face when I start to breathe heavy? Do I start to feel claustrophobic? Do I feel like I'm getting enough airflow with it? I know there's some masks online that say that they're good for athletic activity. I know I'm a part of a lot of different chats on Facebook with other instructors, and have found that there are good and bad within that, and it really is personal taste. Yeah, someone will love one mask and then the other person will feel like they can't breathe in it at all. So I just encourage you to try and do a little activity in your mask before you come in the space. I know personally I carry like 3 around all the time, and just depending on what I'm doing, I may change it out. And then if you're sweaty as well, it would be good to have a couple of masks with you at all times too. So just to throw that out there, I know I'm going to be doing that the next couple of days too, just to see which one I like the best. We will have extras here though. If for any reason you only brought 1 or 2 and you feel like you're just drenched, we will have some here as well. So if you ever feel like you need a mask change, don't suffer in silence. Just let us know and we'll get you one so that you have a clean mask on. And then the last thing, and I don't know, Jamie, if you want to talk about this later, about how we're going to be dealing with if someone's positive, or with quarantine, or with how that works if someone in class is positive. Do you want
Yeah,
me
do you want to, yeah, you can go ahead and do that.
And this is all coming from St. Mary's, and we've kind of been pressing administration because they've not been very quick to be clear about what that procedure looks like. So some of this we just got like in the last couple of days. So I've got notes here so I don't miss anything. The big thing is that if you or a family member have COVID, obviously you need to let us know about that. If a student in class has COVID, what will need to happen, that student will need to be isolated out of class for a minimum of 10 days from when symptoms begin. In order for them to come back, they would need to, if fever is part of their symptoms, which it isn't for everyone, but if they have a fever, they need to be fever-free for a minimum of 24 hours without any kind of fever reducer, ibuprofen or Tylenol. They must be symptom-free. So if they are feeling better, but they still have a significant cough, they still can't come back. They're not allowed to have any symptoms. Okay, which I know is a bummer, because I know some of this stuff lingers even when you're not contagious, but it's really the only way we'll know if you're not having those symptoms anymore. St. Mary's is not requiring a second test that says you're negative if you follow this. If you're still very symptomatic after those 10 days, I would highly encourage you to get another one just to make sure that your symptoms are being taken care of. But at the school, we're required to have you stay out of class for a minimum of 10 days. You have to have no symptoms and no fever for a minimum of 24 hours. What they're saying for instructors, and this goes for professors on campus as well, is that if you have followed that 6 foot or more social distancing, you should not need to quarantine. And we have made every effort to keep ourselves away from the students. And you'll see that when you come in the space. There's also no touching for corrections, which I know can be incredibly frustrating for both instructor and for students as well. But at this point, we feel that that's the safest thing to do. So we shouldn't be close enough to you to have to worry about that quarantining if everyone is in a mask. If you as a student or a faculty member is with that other person that had COVID for 15 minutes or more, whether they have a mask on or not, if they're closer than 6 feet, the teacher would need to quarantine as well. So that's kind of the guidelines that St. Mary's is going with. If my family member, if I had a close family member that lived in my house that had COVID, I would need to quarantine because I've been closer to them than 6 feet. So that's kind of what they're saying about that. Families will be notified if you have a fellow student that has been diagnosed with COVID or a teacher, you will know about it. If you're in that class, we will not be giving any specific information, obviously, about the student that has it, but you'll know. And I'm going to even say, my guess would be that we would let you know if you were in the building that day with that student. So that would be something else. And the only other thing that I can think of that didn't get brought up, but that I think we're going to probably post at St. Mary's, they're only allowing the number of people that there are sinks in a bathroom. So at any one time, like, but if say let's between classes or whatever, and if you need to use the restroom in a class transition, we just want to be aware that if there are 2 sinks in the bathroom, even though there may be 3 or 4 stalls, they're asking that there's no more than those 2 people in there, and we'll have that posted on the door. So if you open the door and you see that there are already 2 people in there, then you just wait outside so we're not congregating in any space for any time. I think that's it, Jamie. I'm sorry, that was a lot, but just to cover those other things.
No, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So I think now we can kind of open up for questions. We'll start with kind of what they're coming in. And since I can now see them, I will go ahead. And we had a question about if they're coming from school and they're not able to change, where should they change?
That's a very good question.
That is a great question.
I guess if their stuff isn't with them at school, like I know personally when I was in high school, if I was going, I would change before I left because I didn't want to change in the car. So, I mean, that would be possibly an option at the school. I guess I would want to know in advance that would be a situation. If you find yourself in that place where you're coming directly to school, if you would let Jamie or I know, so we could make sure that you had a situation that we could set up that would be safe. That's probably what I would suggest.
We could talk, if it's just 1 or 2, we could talk about maybe even covering the door of a practice room or finding a space that's not being utilized at this time. We could work with you on that. I think that's a good plan. So talk to us if you find that you absolutely do not have a space to change into. We can
and if you're
talk about
close enough, if you live close enough that you can go home, I guess that's what I would probably prefer. And just remember, I know you guys have been so good at coming early to warm up and things like that. And unfortunately, we won't be able to do that during this situation. So you remember, you're only going to be allowed in the building 15 minutes before class begins. So if that would give you that time to go home and change and maybe do a little bit of light stretching before you leave your house too, I might suggest that as well, because one of the other things that I regret I didn't say, we can't be on the floor to stretch. So if you want to do some things that would make you be in contact with the floor, then I would highly encourage you to do that before you come. And yeah, we'll do some stretching at the bar standing, but we won't be able to be on the floor.
So, and then we also had a question about taking off a mask to take a drink of water. I know you and Jess have talked about this, so I'm going to let you handle that one too, Tammy.
Yeah, this is quite the dilemma because basically what St. Mary's is saying is no food or drink, period, in any space. So if you're in class, you cannot drink or have food, period. Now, for dance, that just doesn't work. So we're gonna kind of hedge that a little bit. And this really has to do most, I would say, with your comfort level. We are allowing, if you're going to take a quick drink of water during your class, you can, take off one side and get a drink and put your mask right back up, or grab the middle and pull it down. Again, totally not the thing that they tell you to do. They say, don't touch your mask. The one thing that I would say that I've heard a lot is don't grab the center of the mask from the bottom and pull up, because then you're just putting your big dirty thumb underneath, right where your face is going to be inside your mask. So if you need to do it, they suggest that you take it from one ear loop, pull it, drink, and then put it right back again. So that would be my suggestion, as long as you can do it quickly. If we start to see people taking a drink break every 2 minutes because they just want to breathe without their mask on, then that might become a conversation with that particular student. The other choice, again, like I said, is if you feel like you need a little bit more time without a mask on, there's no judgment here. I would love, and I know the other instructors would probably love you to just wave at us or get our eye to eye attention there, so we see you and we understand why you're leaving, just to make sure you're not physically in distress. If somebody feels like they're going to pass out, obviously we want to know that so we can get you medical help if you need it. But please feel free to use those doors. And again, each space, your first instructor in there will show you how they want you to exit, where you can leave if you need that extra time.
And then I'll answer the next question. It was about 2 ballet classes going on at the same time. Yes, there are 2 ballet classes going on at the same time. So ballet 5 and then ballet 6, 7. We did have to kind of shuffle people a little bit in order to make those more even and fit the number of people that we can per space. With the way the boxes are set up and the bar space and everything, it turns out to be we can have 10 people in the theater. We can have 9 people in Studio 2, and we can have 8 people in Studio 1. So there will never be more students than that, and then 1 instructor at a time.
And one other thing, just to say really quickly about that too, because I've had a couple of students ask me about this in the past, and I've always said that's totally fine. If for any reason you have, like, say, a doctor's appointment or dentist appointment or something, you would miss your class. Usually, when students ask, can I come and take this other class as a makeup, we always say yes. Unfortunately, because of those numbers, we can't do that this semester. So if that should happen, just let Jamie or Megan or me know, or whoever your instructor is, and that way we'll make sure that you have that online link for a different class. Let's say you're a ballet 5, 6, 7 person. We can give you the link to a ballet 4 that week or something, so you get that additional class in as well, because we want to make sure you're still getting those classes.
Yeah. Any other questions? You can either type it, or if you would like to unmute yourself and ask a question if there's something that you think that we haven't covered.
Jamie, it's Megan. Did you talk about if somebody comes in and we check their temperature and they have a fever?
Oh, good. No, I don't know if we covered that. So if somebody comes in and their temperature is 100.4 or higher, we will be asking them to leave. If they are someone that drove themselves, that will be easy enough for them just to hop in the car and go. If they need to make a phone call, we're happy to make that phone call for them, or they have a cell phone, they can do that themselves. So it might be a good idea. While we're waiting, we will probably find a spot that is away from everybody else. So probably if we don't have music lessons and things going on, probably down the hallway, by the practice rooms, or another space, the recital hall or something that we have nobody else in a space, just to make sure. We realize that a temperature may be something unrelated to COVID, but especially we'd rather be safe than sorry, and make sure that we're keeping things as safe. And especially if getting another virus would make somebody more susceptible to a bad case of COVID, we want to mitigate that. So that is just going to be how things are going to go. So we will find a nice space to isolate that student until they're picked up. If parents are at all worried, feel free to hang out for 5 minutes after you drop your student off. We anticipate it might take a little bit longer day one, as we're just using for us to just kind of get used to everybody coming at the same time, but it shouldn't be a long process. When people come in, they'll just be asked to make sure that they have gone through the checklist and that they're COVID safe on that. We have a touchless thermometer that we're using, and we're recording the names of who is in the building. That will also serve as a way for us to take attendance, as well as it'll allow us for contact tracing if need be. Did that answer the question?
Yes, very well. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Megan. I'm glad you remembered that.
Also a reminder, kind of something that's been said several times, but I think it's great to remember, if this feels overwhelming, that there's so many things that we're doing and that might seem like overkill, a reminder that if we do this right, it should feel like overkill. You know, we don't want anything. We want this to be like, why did we do this? This was nothing. Nobody got sick. I mean, that would be the perfect world. And since we're tied to St. Mary's, and in a new way now too, we're now an intimate part of the Department of Fine and Performing Arts. We're not just an affiliate program anymore. That just happened this summer. But because of that, we are tied to the university. So all of the decisions that we have to live with are coming, you know, from this larger institution. So we want to make sure we follow everything so that we're not giving them any reason to close us down. We want to make sure that we stay open for the whole session, if at all possible.
Anybody else have any questions, comments, concerns? Yeah, Anna Paula.
So if for some reason we have to move online, will there be like any accommodations for college students, since we are like in dorm rooms and they're like pretty small?
That's a really good question. My first conversation would probably be with administration up there. Probably the VP of facilities would be able to tell us if we're allowed to do that. My guess would be that they might try to create some sort of an accommodation on the main campus. I'm not sure if they would allow for this space to be used. I'm not completely sure, especially if transportation is an issue, because they're not going to want to put two people in a car together if they would need transportation. But my guess would be that they would try and make some modifications to the situation.
I mean, and maybe there's at least a more empty space up on campus that
Yes.
could be, you know, that's bigger than your dorm room that could be used. That's what I would hope for, at the least. Or the dance studio up on campus. But we can cross that bridge if we get there for those college students.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Is that Izzy?
Yeah. So I am taking tap on Saturdays, and then I am in the 1 p.m. contemporary class. Do I have to step out of the studio in between those 15 minutes and then come back in?
Izzy, they'll be in two different spaces. So you would leave that space. I believe the tap class, all the tap classes are in Studio 2. So you would be in Studio 2 for the tap class, and then you would have that short break where you could go outside or find a place to social distance in the building. And then you would go into, I believe you're in Studio 1 for the second, the 1 o'clock class. So then you would come down to that space after that.
And we will have all of the, it's instead of having where's my class, because it's such a limited number of dance classes that we have, we'll actually have the actual schedule posted in a couple places throughout the building. So you can check on that, which space you're going to be in.
And students in the ballet 5 and the 6-7 will alternate instructors too. So that will also be listed on there as well, just so that we, especially given that we have a little bit, for many of us, it's less numbers of days. We want to be able to give you this experience where you're not only using your bodies, but your brains as well. So you're getting different combinations from different instructors every day as well. So that will also be listed on that. It's basically a calendar that I created that has what class, who's the teacher that day, and what space it's in. So that should help as you're moving through space. And we just ask that you use whatever door is closest between those classes. So if you're in Studio 1 for ballet class with me, and then you're going to take point variations in the black box after that, that you go to that closest door. Those all the doors will be propped open for your classes. And then if you're, in the lobby and you're going from Studio 2 to the black box, that you go to the where the double doors are. So we're taking the shortest pathway if we can, just to keep things as moving as well as we can between spaces.
Just a question I have, I just thought of this. Are classroom doors going to be open during the duration of classes as well?
Yes. So teachers will have to be a little bit more mindful of volume levels for music too. So just to be aware, if, as a student, you may be hearing, the downbeat of somebody's ballet music in your space. I doubt it though. Most of the time when there's two classes going on, we're either in Studio 1 and Studio 2 or Studio 1 in the black box. So there's a little bit of separation there, but we will be keeping all the doors open. So no one should have to touch any of the handles in order to get out. The bathroom doors should be propped. The only thing you should really have to touch would be your stall doors in the bathrooms.
What about changing clothes between classes? I think we would mostly recommend that you wear, that maybe you're adding on, you know, jazz pants or something over your ballet tights or things like that. Any other comments, Tammy?
I mean, that would be, I guess that would be ideal if you could just put something over it. If you feel that you might be overheated or you really feel like you need to change, I would say, you know, do it as you're physically using the bathroom stall to go to the bathroom, and just do a really quick change in there too. We want to try to keep from having people all being congregated in the bathroom together, just to keep people social distance, because the spaces don't have the HVAC system doesn't, you know, it doesn't work as well in the bathrooms. It's a little bit more closed in. So we want to just be mindful of that. Anybody else? I have one more random question for everybody, and you can just, if you're interested, I'm just curious. There's been some conversation with myself and a couple of college students and with Jamie as well. We've been talking about, because we cannot do Nutcracker this year, about the possibility of maybe doing some little recordings of some material that either you've done previously or that you might learn in a class setting, or learn online and practice separately and then videotape. Does that sound like something that you might be interested in? I mean, is that of interest, doing anything like that? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Okay. We were just in the beginning stages of talking about it, but I just thought, you know, for those of you that have done Waltz of the Flowers before, wouldn't it be cool if we recorded you all separate and then did it with music all together online? So to do some things like that, and obviously it wouldn't be anywhere near a complete Nutcracker, but even if we could give our community a little taste so they don't forget about us for next year, I would love to do that. So I may be talking to you more about that in the weeks to come. Anything else?
All right. Well, as always, if you think of something else, or if you think there's something that we missed, or if you have a question, please feel free to contact us. If you want to send it to the main MCA email account, then Megan can help make sure it makes it to the right place. Otherwise, you can send it directly to myself or Tammy. Those email addresses are mca@smumn.edu. It'd be J Schwaba, JSCHWABA @smumn.edu, and T Schmidt, TSCHMIDT @smumn.edu. So feel free to contact us anytime if you have questions, and we'll make sure that we have an answer for you, or the best answer at the moment, as this is a little bit of a fluid situation. But I think that we can do this as safe as possible and get you guys back in the studio, which I know that everybody is dying to do. You know, we just ask you that you guys do your part, we'll do our part, and hopefully we can continue to meet in person. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording unless there's anybody else that has any questions.
Jamie, I'd just like to say thank you, and Tammy and Megan, and I know all the other instructors, for all the work that you did. I know how much work this is, on top of everything else that you do. So thank you very much.
Thank you. There is a lot that goes into it. Tammy and Jess spent a lot of time in the studios taping everything out. We've had lots of conversations Megan's been busy sending all kinds of online updates to people, online links and things like that. So I appreciate everybody that's gone on this journey with us. I know it hasn't been completely flawless, but I'm pretty impressed that with what we have done and pretty proud. And I hope that, we can make this work for a long time and get through this. And thank you. So.